Welcome. I'm Doug Morgan, and you're listening to Uncommon Sense, where we hunt for the truth in the topics you're not supposed to talk about, Christianity and politics. And welcome back to the podcast. Yes, it is Friday, so you know what that means. This is FOMO Friday. We love to dispense of your fear of missing out because you're not listening to propaganda media anymore and you want to know what's going on around you and around the world. So we bring you the stories you should probably know a little bit about, and some of them you may even already know a little bit about, but we tell you a little bit more maybe. We'll see. And on this very first story, we kind of have to go back a couple weeks. We don't normally do that. It's normally, the stories of the week, but we really have to go back a couple weeks in order to understand what is happening now. And we go back to a Reuters Daily Wire report of March 30th, and it says, in a Palm Sunday homily treated by legacy media as a direct moral indictment of President Trump's foreign policy, the possibility, a criticism of Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, Pope Leo, declared on Sunday that God does not listen to leaders who wage war while claiming his name. That's kind of interesting, right? Speaking to tens of thousands in St. Peter's Square amid the ongoing war between Iran and a joint coalition of the United States and Israel, the first American Pope said that Jesus does not listen to the prayers of those who wage war, but reject them, saying, even though you make many prayers, I will not listen. Your hands are full of blood, citing a biblical passage, of course. Well, the Pope did not specifically name any world leaders, but of course he has been ramping up criticism of the Iran war in recent weeks. And during an appeal at the end of Sunday's celebration, the Pope lamented that Christians in the Middle East, quote, are suffering the consequences of an atrocious conflict, unquote, and may not be able to celebrate Easter. Yeah, like many celebrate Easter in Iran. And what about the 42,000 Christians and protesters that were killed just months before we went in? I don't know. That doesn't seem real peaceful. Anyway, I digress. President Trump has framed the intervention in Iran as a necessary defense of Western civilization. Earlier this month, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, who is a devout Christian, by the way, said at a press conference, he said, my 13-year-old son popped into my office last night while I was editing these remarks. He asked about the war and the families I met at Dover. I looked at him and I said, they died for you, son, so that your generation doesn't have to deal with a nuclear Iran. It's the truth. And they did. So to the families who said, finish this, we will. And I said the same to every American who wants peace through strength. May Almighty God continue to bless our troops in this fight. And again, to the American people, please pray for them every day on bended knee with your family, in your schools, in your churches, in the name of Jesus Christ. To the troops, keep going, and Godspeed. Well, of course, that Sunday was not the first time the pontiff addressed the hostilities in Iran. Just after the United States launched Operation Epic Fury against the Iranian regime, Pope Leo stated that, quote, stability and peace are not built with mutual threats, nor with weapons, which sow destruction, pain, and death, but only through a reasonable, authentic, and responsible dialogue, unquote. So So, yeah, peace can only be done by talking. Well, the Trump administration has said that its decision to strike was made after it determined that the Iranian regime was not negotiating in good faith. And so, from this, like I say, we had to take a step back. From this, President Trump then, when he was asked about what the Pope had said, told reporters that the Pope thinks it's okay for Iran to have a nuclear weapon, but it wasn't okay with him. Now, I mean, obviously the Pope didn't specifically say, I hope Iran has a nuclear weapon, okay? But the point is well taken. I mean, we are in Iran right now doing what we're doing. Why? Because they were this close, and I hold my fingers very, very close to each other. They were this close from getting a nuclear weapon, and that was not okay. And so, among other things, that was one of the main factors of us being there. And so, if we're just supposed to be talking or whatever, that's not going to get that done. Well, that was just too much for the Bible scholars over at The View. So when President Trump was like, nope, this is what we have to do, and he's having a little back and forth with the Pope, yeah, our Bible scholars over at The View just couldn't hold back. And so neither will we. And I bring to you an opinion piece by Chloe Trapanato. And Chloe says that on Tuesday's episode of The View, it was Joy Behar's turn to play biblical scholar. The longtime co-host confidently asserted, quote, Jesus himself did not run around saying, I'm the Messiah, unquote. Say what? Yeah, co-host Sarah Haynes, to her credit, immediately responded with the obvious, that's exactly what Jesus said, I am the Messiah. So there's at least a few brain cells on that show. I mean, really, let that sink in. One of television's most prominent voices, whether you like it or not, just rewrote the Gospels on live television because it was politically convenient. This is what passes for insight on daytime television. And don't forget that ABC considers The View a news show. Let's do what Behar clearly hasn't. Let's open the Bible, shall we? In John 4, Jesus sits down with a Samaritan woman at the well. She says the Messiah is coming. Jesus replies plainly, I who speak to you am he. What do you think he meant by that? I think it's pretty clear, don't you? Well, I mean, if you want more, okay. In John 8:58, he declares, before Abraham was, I am. A direct claim to the divine name of God from Exodus 3:14. The religious leaders tried to stone him on the spot for blasphemy because he was claiming he was God, right? During his trial before the high priest, in Matthew 26, when asked if he was the Christ, the Son of the Blessed, Jesus answered, I am. That confession is what led directly to his crucifixion. The entire trial and execution hinge on Jesus affirming his identity as the promised Messiah. Is Joy Behar having a Joe Biden moment? Jesus didn't run around shouting it like a campaign slogan, but he most certainly claimed it repeatedly and clearly and with divine authority. He spoke as one with authority over the law itself. The very reason he was crucified was because he claimed to be the Messiah. This isn't just garden variety ignorance. It's the sneering arrogance of the secular left, which loves a neutered hippie version of Jesus who never makes any uncomfortable truth claims. And sorry to the hippies out there. Not fair to them, I don't think, with that statement. But in reality, the real Jesus is far too politically incorrect for the view set. He's the one who called religious hypocrites a brood of vipers and insisted that he was the exclusive path to salvation, not just one of the many spokes on a wheel. He was the one and only. Joy Behar and the company, like, the memory hole, they like to memory hole the parts of the story that don't fit their narrative. And The View has long been a safe place for this kind of casual anti-Christian contempt. From Whoopi Goldberg's historical illiteracy to the panel's routine sneering at Christian nationalists, these multimillionaire celebrities treat faith as either a joke or a weapon, depending on the target, of course. Behar isn't just wrong here. She's confidently, arrogantly wrong. The kind of wrong that only comes from someone who hasn't cracked open a Bible since she lost her faith to find herself. The irony is thicker than her makeup. These are the same hosts who invoke Jesus when they want to shame conservatives about immigration or taxes. But the second a Republican does anything remotely, culturally Christian, well, suddenly he's just some vague figure who never made any bold claims about himself. Meanwhile, actual Christianity, the kind grounded in Scripture, remains the most persecuted faith on earth, absorbing violence with progressives like Behar lecture us from their cushy ABC perch about who the real threat is. Now, while Behar was busy screaming to America about narcissism during Holy Week, millions of Christians were celebrating the holiest days of the year. The week the Messiah did exactly what the Gospels record. He claimed his title, carried his cross, and rose from the dead 3 days later to prove every word true. Next time Joy wants to play Bible scholar, maybe she should try reading one first. But it wasn't just her. It wasn't just Behar. Not to be outdone, Whoopi Goldberg chimed in, and she said, step aside, Thomas Aquinas, and make room, St. Augustine. There is a new Bible scholar in town, and she didn't find her calling in a cathedral. She found it in a Reno lounge act and a Disney-funded wardrobe department. Whoopi Goldberg, a woman whose theological training apparently consists of wearing a polyester habit in 2 Sister Act films, has decided that she is the preeminent authority on the Bible. Yeah. Speaking on The View on Thursday, Goldberg donned her invisible mitre to lecture the masses on why the U.S. shouldn't deal with Iran, wielding scripture with the surgical precision, of a blindfolded butcher. Citing the Beatitudes and the command to turn the other cheek, Goldberg lamented that her own cheeks are getting tired from all the slapping. It's a touching sentiment, truly. One can almost hear the angels weeping. Or perhaps that's just the sound of anyone who has actually read Romans 13, hitting the floor in a dead faint. Whoopi, ever the humble scholar, warned her audience that they only have a half a quote and need to get into the Bible, That's what she said. That's what she called it, the Bible. To truly understand that being a peacemaker apparently means letting a theocratic regime develop ICBMs. It's a bold move for a woman who previously informed the world that, quote, there's nothing in the book that says anything about abortion, unquote. Apparently, in Whoopi's version of the Bible, God's intricate knitting together of an unborn child in the womb, mentioned in Psalms 139, by the way, was just a suggestion. And the sword the state bears in Romans 13 is actually a pool noodle used for rhythmic gymnastics. But Goldberg's expertise doesn't stop at foreign policy. She also has been there to fix the Catholic Church's administrative issues. The Archbishop Salvatore Cordione dared to enforce Canon 915 by denying communion to Nancy Pelosi, and Whoopi was there to set him straight when she said, "This is not your job, dude," unquote. According to the Gospel of Goldberg, the Eucharist isn't a sacrament requiring a state of grace. It's a participation trophy for anyone with a view microphone. She's schooling us, folks. We just don't understand the Bible like she does. After all, she played a nun twice. That's basically 2/3 of a Trinity. So, I mean, I will just say that it bugs me to see how those that have no religious beliefs of their own love quoting the Pope when they agree with him. They criticize and disagree with the Pope on abortion. They criticize and disagree with the Pope on same-sex marriage. They criticize and disagree with the Pope on the Bible. But just as soon as the Pope says something slightly close to what they think, man, he is the best thing since sliced bread. They can't stay off the internet without posting the quote that they agree with, but only when he says something that they like. Well, I mean, I could go on and on and on and on about The View. I told you I could probably do a whole podcast over and over with just The View stuff, but there were other things that happened this week, and so let's talk about some of those. Tennessee Attorney General Jonathan Skrmetti, well, he accused a Nashville public school of promoting particular religious viewpoints through its accommodations of Muslim students during Ramadan, saying the school crossed the line from allowing religious exercise to actively facilitating it. In a Tuesday interview with the Tennessee Star, he responded to reports that a Metro Nashville Public Schools employee set up a dedicated Islamic prayer room at the John Overton High School and encouraged Muslim students to skip class to use it. Yeah, free exercise, this is a quote from him. He says, free exercise says the government can't stop you from practicing your religion. The Establishment Clause, as interpreted, and as we hear about every time the legislature tries to do anything these days, says that the state can't participate in promoting particular religious viewpoints. John Overton High School, according to a report from the Nashville Banner, permitted more than 80 students to skip class daily during Ramadan prayer sessions, in addition to separate food-free classrooms for fasting Muslim students. Students reportedly used paper towels as improvised prayer mats and set up a divider separating boys from girls before one student recited passages from the Quran. Outside of the month of Ramadan, students are reportedly permitted to leave school grounds once a month to pray. Quote, so if the school is deciding and dedicating resources to something, that's a very different situation than if a student if the students are self-organizing, Scrimetti said. He says, I look at it as an attempt to propagandize and to proselytize non-Muslim students. And that's my view, he says. In a similar vein, the U.S. Department of Education guidance released in February states that public schools may not sponsor prayer, nor coerce or pressure students to pray. Quote, school officials should allow members of the public school community to act and speak accordingly to their faith as long as the school itself does not engage in religious activities or speech as an institution, is what the guidance continues to say. The Tennessee Attorney General teased further state action on the issue, concluding, I expect that we'll be hearing more about it one way or another. So, yeah, obviously you can't do that. You cannot. You can let the students pray, and you can, and that is perfectly acceptable. What you can't do is you can't set up these prayer rooms and say, here, we're going to help sponsor these things for you if you are Muslim or whatever. That is when the government then gets into promoting one religion over another. You can't do that. And it's another reason, I guess, reason number 1742, that why you should homeschool. And speaking of homeschooling, here's an opinion piece by Daniel and Stacy Palmer. They are the parents of a 15-year-old son, and this is what they wrote. They said, our son Samuel is 15 years old, and he loves to run. When the school day ends, he laces up his shoes and heads out. Running has become a meaningful part of his life, strengthening his body, steadying his mind, and shaping habits of discipline and perseverance. Samuel ran track and cross country through middle school. He trained hard, and he competed alongside his peers. And he got better. And then he entered 9th grade, and Virginia told him to stop. Yes, the state of Virginia told him to stop. Not because he isn't fast enough, not because he isn't dedicated enough, not because he did anything wrong. Samuel was just told he could no longer compete in track and cross-country events sanctioned by the Virginia High School League, or the VHSL, because we educate him at home. Our decision to homeschool Samuel is rooted in our faith. It is a deeply personal choice, one Virginia law fully recognizes and protects. Each year, we file our notice of intent with the superintendent and provide a list of subjects that he will study. Samuel completes assignments, reads wildly, and writes regularly, and takes nationally normed standardized tests where he performs well. Stacy, Samuel's mother, of course, is a formally licensed public educator who has taught hundreds of students across multiple disciplines. We would gladly meet reasonable academic reporting requirements if doing so meant Samuel could run alongside his peers at Northside High School. But none of that matters under the current rules. The VHSL's policy, in place for nearly 40 years, requires students to be bona fide full-time enrollees of a member school. Homeschoolers do not qualify, period. It does not matter how rigorous the academics are. It does not matter that we pay the same taxes that fund the very schools and athletic programs from which our son is excluded. It does not matter that more than 66,000 Virginia children are homeschooled, a number that grows every single year. The door is shut. That makes the exclusion even harder to justify, is that the group permitted to pass through that door, public school students, can compete, of course. Private school students can participate in the VHSL sanctioned events. Even students enrolled in full-time virtual public school programs, students who've never set foot in a school building, they're eligible. But a homeschooled student who lives in the district, whose family pays the taxes that fund it, who meet every academic standard set by the state, and who simply wants to train and compete, receives no such opportunity. There is no coherent principle behind the red line, and the VHSL's own exemptions expose the problem. We tried to work within the system before we ever considered a courtroom. We approached the VHSL and even offered to present our case. The response, to paraphrase, was simple. The policy is what it is. The board supports it. In effect, we were told not to waste our time. That was a difficult moment for our family, they said. We respect authority, and we teach our children to do the same. Samuel himself has said he was raised to follow the rules. But also this, when those in authority step outside constitutional bounds, the Constitution provides a path for citizens to seek a remedy. We are grateful to have found allies in this fight. The Founding Freedoms Law Center, the legal arm of the Family Foundation of Virginia, is representing our family pro bono for years, decades, really. Efforts have been made to fix this through the legislature. Session after session, lawmakers have introduced what is commonly known as the Tebow bill legislation that would allow homeschool students to participate in public school athletics as they already can in roughly 30 other states. Repeatedly, those efforts succeeded and the legislature passed the bill. Every single time, Governor Terry McAuliffe vetoed it, closing the door just as it was about to open. The legislative path has been tried and has been blocked, but the legislation has not yet accomplished the Constitution already secures. The government cannot deny access to a publicly funded benefit because a family lives in accordance to sincerely held religious convictions. Nor can it deny equal protection under the law based solely on how a child is educated. That is why, on March 30th of this year, we filed a lawsuit, federal lawsuit, against the Virginia High School League and the Roanoke County School Board. Our case argues this blanket exclusion violates the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment, the religious liberty protections of the Virginia Constitution, and the Virginia Religious Freedom Restoration Act. We are asking for a jury trial in federal courts in Roanoke. We want to be clear about what this case is and what it is not. This is not about arguing about guaranteeing Samuel a spot on a team. It is about giving him the same opportunity as any other student to try out where tryouts are held, to participate where they are not, to earn a place and compete. It is about the simple principle that a taxpayer-funded benefit should not be withheld from a child because his parents, guided by their faith, choose to educate him at home. It's not just about Samuel. When we told him we were considering this lawsuit, his response moved us. He said he wanted to do this not only for himself, but for his friends and for the child he has not even met, a homeschooled student somewhere in Virginia who might one day have the chance to compete because this barrier was finally removed. Other states have already shown this works. Homeschoolers participate. Standards remain intact. Teams function as expected. The sky does not fall. Virginia refuses to follow where the evidence already leads. Meanwhile, Samuel's high school years continue to slip away. Every season he cannot compete is one he will never recover. A season of training with teammates, testing himself in real competition, and learning discipline and persistence in ways only organized athletics can teach. He dreams of one day being fast enough to run Virginia Tech. It's not a long shot. It is a long shot, but it should be his shot to take. Without the opportunity to compete at the high school level, the door is closed to him. We have also filed a preliminary injunction so Samuel can run while his case proceeds. Time flies, especially for a 15-year-old who runs. We did not seek this fight. We are a family from Mono County who wanted our son to run track. But when we encountered a rule that treats our child as less than equal for no reason other than where he sits during the school day, we knew that we had to act. Not just for Samuel, but for every family in Virginia who has been told that their children do not belong. Our message is simple. Let Samuel run and let the kids play. I mean, there's 30 states of the 50 who allow this, but that means that there's 20 that do not. And let's hope that in Virginia they do the right thing here, and the courts do side with them, and maybe that number will be down to 19 soon. Well, I wanted to end our conversation today with kind of a funny story. And let me just read it for you. This is from UPI from Annie Martin, and she says that Westlake, Ohio police were relieved when a recent welfare check on an elderly woman found her safe in her home. What was she doing? She was playing video games. The officers said concerns were raised April 9th about a 91-year-old resident enrolled in the city's voluntary Confirm OK program, and that fact that she did not answer her check-in phone call. Police were dispatched because she didn't pick up the phone for a wellness check, and after speaking with the woman's daughter, who also was unable to reach her, they became, of course, more alarmed. And when there was no answer at the door, despite the woman's car being in the garage, people got real worried. Once inside the home, though, the police found the woman safe and playing video games in her bedroom. She explained that she missed the calls because she was focused on beating her top score in a bubble pop game. It turned out to be all okay. Everyone got a good laugh about it, including the police. But anyway, I don't know if I've ever played bubble pop, but yeah, anyway, she won high score. she wasn't going to let anything get in the way of that. So anyway, I'd love to hear maybe, what game is your favorite. You can always do that at uncommonsensepodcast.com. Thank you very much for listening. This podcast is a production of Morganite Communications.